Hi everyone, it's my pleasure to participate in this summit and have a speech. Today I will introduce some work on my team with the title Practice of Mining Electronic Health Records. Electronic health records of a patient is a repository of information about his or her health status. There are different types of data within EHRs. We have medication, laboratory, imaging, and narrative text. Among all these different types of healthcare data, the clinical notes, which are written by physicians as they are documenting the clinical process, including their thinking process, decision-making process, the evidence they found, how they did the differential diagnosis, and the treatment plan for that patients. Because many of these notes are unstructured text, it is very difficult for analysis and then extract information from. So in this speech, I will talk a little bit about it. When dealing with clinical notes, we will face several challenges. The first is availability. How to get this EHR data? It is still an unsolved problem. Who is the owner of this clinical data? Who has a right to use this data? Patients, hospitals, or government? And there is no standard to process this data before they could be ready for use. The second is complexity. The clinical notes could be very, very long, especially for inpatients. What's more, there are many abbreviations. Some are in English, some of them are even in Latin. It is not obvious for us to think about how to go extracting the clinical meaning. Another issue is there are both structured and unstructured data existing in clinical notes. Besides the unstructured free text, we also have tabular data, which does have structure, and it's really hard for natural language processing system to understand them. The third one is quality. Clinical notes should be manually entered text. Therefore, it's time consuming and need a lot of efforts. The real situation cannot be certified. Information missing, typos, and another source of many errors is copy and paste, which is not a good approach, but widely exists. The last but not least important is interoperability. There are many different EHR systems currently are used in different hospitals. It remains a huge challenge to enable the transfer of information among different EHR systems. Meanwhile, the diversity of data formats and different terminology and style bring a lot of troubles for data mining. There are two parts of our work on EHRs: extracting information from EHRs and the full application and task to make use of this information. The first step to utilize EHR is data cleansing, which makes them ready for use. Normally, to extract information from narrative text, we should scan all of that text and then find all of clinical entities such as symptoms, vital signs, laboratory tests, and so on. Then, clinical relation extraction should be conducted to find the relations between these clinical entities, like the attributes of a symptom, such as degree, time of duration, and so on. As we have mentioned, our clinical notes may come from many different EHR systems. Therefore, we should map these named entities into the ontology, or in another word, medical concepts. In this way, we extract most of the clinical information from EHR data, and at the same time, after normalization step, we have almost the same style, no matter where these clinical notes come from. Most of this work are based on natural language processing technologies. This is a flow chart. We need lots of data with their labels. We should define different NLP tasks and train many different models, and the performance is quite well. For most of the tests, the recall and accuracy is more than 90%. Here is an example. For a sentence from an ultrasound report, we name entity recognition and the clinical relation extraction. We can output a graph like that, which describes the structural information of the sentence. The clinical data comes through in lots of different formats. Sometimes they are PDF files. Then we need to think about how to do the OCR. If the PDF file is a laboratory report, which has tabular data and contains structure, it could be more difficult to extract information. Although OCR is an old topic, and there are many tools you can find. But for laboratory report PDF files, it is still a big challenge. Multilingual, mix of diagrams and text, various typesetting styles, complex thematic relation. So tools you can find cannot achieve satisfied performance. If you want to develop a specific tool with machine learning technologies, you may find that lacking of data and labels. Moreover, field-targeted studies can provide further help. We put some efforts on this topic, and let's see what we have done. Here's an example. The performance is quite good, and to those samples familiar with training data, we can say perfect. However, we are still not sure about its robustness, because it may encounter different style data, which could be more difficult cases. With all the information extracted from clinical notes, in theory, we can do more things with the help of artificial intelligence. Intelligent medicine comes to be a very hot research area. Computer-aided diagnosis is one of the important directions. Assembling deep learning model and rule-based model together, the diagnosis tool we developed now can cover more than 600 diseases. And for the accuracy, top 1 is about 85%, and top 5 candidates can cover 93%. To achieve this computer-aided diagnosis, we propose a new graph-based test classification framework, Tensor GCN. In this framework, semantic-based, syntactic-based, and sequential-based test graphs are firstly constructed to form a test graph tensor. The graph tensor is used to capture test information in semantic context, syntactic context, and sequential context respectively. The tensor GCN learning process includes 2 parts. The first is intra-graph propagation learning from the input graph tensor. The second is intergraph propagation learning with using the output of the intra-graph propagation as its input. These 2 parts work iteratively. It works quite well and achieved performance, shown in last slide. This model was introduced in GVI 2020. Another important topic is DRGS. DRGS refers to diagnosis-related groups. It divides patients into 500 to 600 diagnosis-related groups according to their age, gender, length of stay in hospital, clinical diagnosis, illness, surgery, severity of disease, complications, and outcome. And then the grouping results are applied to describe how much compensation should be given to the hospital. China has begun a trial to use DRGS. Therefore, DRGS will play an important role in the cost and the quality of healthcare in the near future. Disease coding is the basic task of DRGS. In China, many different versions of ICD-10 are currently used in different hospitals. For ICD-10, there are more than 33,000 codes. It's a huge number. Therefore, for some patients, to assign the most accurate code is time-consuming and needs special knowledge and experience. It should be a spot that AI technologies can provide help. So we developed a tool to achieve.
Well, this was a very interesting presentation. I just would like to inform the audience that Q&A session will be at the end of this.
Coding practical applications. Therefore, we designed flexible learning framework, tensor graph neural network for the ICD coding task. The framework can effectively incorporate clinical information from EHRs and disease-wise knowledge from experts with light computational complexity. Our proposed framework can support large-scale ICD coding with high accuracy, so it can be applied in real applications. What we have in EHRs, we can find the physician thinking process, decision-making process, the evidence for the differential diagnosis, and the treatment plan. Therefore, EHR quality is actually related to the healthcare quality tightly. The goal of EHR quality control is about how to improve EHRs. Actually, there is a huge difference between EHR's data of different hospitals and still far from satisfied. Typical problems such as content missing, written errors, copy-paste tests, diagnosis accuracy, and so on. We are working very hard on developing a system which can conduct quality inspection for EHRs and find out all about problems. Some of them are about the form, such as the length of teeth complaint, history of illness, typing errors. Meanwhile, some of the problems are about the logical or clinical meaning, such as diagnosing issues, context consistency. Some of them are quite easy, some of them based on the name entity recognition and relation extraction, and also some of them require knowledge inference, such as knowledge graph and the reasoning algorithm on it. The information which can be mined from clinical notes may have more usage. We have two more tasks here. The first one is about ultrasound reports generation. An example of ultrasound report is shown in the figure. The first part of the content is ultrasound image, where the doctor said key multiple images for subsequent analysis during the examination. The second part of the content is ultrasound report that doctor gives based on the images, which includes summative and diagnostic description. It costs a lot of time and energy of radiologists to analyze the ultrasound image and write the report. It is obvious that the report generation task is much more difficult than age detection and attributes classification. If the report generation can go to real application, it will be a great help to relieve the pressure of radiologist shortage. To achieve this goal, we can first mine the framework and the templates from large number of reports we have. On the other hand, we can get clinical information with image analysis. We can generate reports based on the framework, templates, and clinical information. Our first try is to generate ultrasound reports automatically, and we do have made some progress. Based on the mining on ultrasound reports, we can get information which should derive from image analysis that help us define multiple tasks of image analysis. After that, we can generate reports from the information list. For some simple cases, results seem okay. However, we should do more work to cope with complicated situations. The second one is about national medical license examination. In China, passing this examination is a necessary step to be a doctor. We developed a system to participate in this examination in August 2017, together with more than 500,000 examinees. The passing line is 360 out of 600. Our system made 456, which significantly exceeds the passing line. Moreover, this score outperformed 96.3% examining, which is some kind of out of expectation. We have set up a two-stage framework, including reading phase and the reasoning phase. Reading phase is to get knowledge representation from many kinds of text with free reading and guided reading. Free reading means learning model without any label, like word embedding model, while in guided reading, we use labels information in fine-tuning to improve the embedding model. Reasoning phase try to make inference based on knowledge we have collected and represent with facts and graph. We build a three-level ensemble framework, which is made up of key point reasoning, context reasoning, and global digest reasoning to conduct reasoning coping with different situations from simple to complicated. The test center, who organize the national medical license examination, conduct analysis on the performance of our system for different cognitive levels and for different question types. Our system are all outperformed than human examinee. In subject of the examination, there are 4 categories: preclinical medicine, clinical medicine, medical communities, preventive medicine. Only for the medical communities questions, our system underperforming examinees slightly. The reason is the questions about the medical communities can be answered with common sense, which is difficult for the system. It is also a big challenge to artificial technologies today because common sense is difficult to define and there is nowhere for system to learn common sense. After that, we developed a general AI-aided diagnosing system, which has been applied in primary healthcare agency from 2019. So, I have shown you what we have done with clinical notes. I think the clinical data is very important and there are still many possibilities and great potential to make more use of them. and this work will significantly improve the healthcare quality, which is important to our people and society. That's all for my speech. Thank you.